Greetings! Today we're going to be working on properties of multiplication. There's going to be a lot of notes opportunities, so please make sure you have your notebook and something to write with ready. Here we go. So there are multiple properties of multiplication. Our first one is the commutative property. This property just says that we can change the order of what we multiply. So if we're going to do 4 times 5, we could also do 5 times 4, and we're going to get the same answer. I like to think of this one as communication. I start talking, you then talk. You start talking, and then I talk. And we can go back and forth, and it doesn't really matter the order of it. We still will get the same product. The next one is associative property. The associative property does not change any of the numbers in their order, but it does change where the parentheses are going to be. Those are those brackets that hug numbers. So that tells us what order we should solve this problem in. So you can see in the example right up here of how 3 times 4 is in the parenthesis first, and then in the second problem, we change it to the 4 times 2. Again, by changing the parentheses, we are not going to change the outcome of our answer. Our next property is the distributive property, and we're going to focus on this one today a little bit more. The distributive property, I also like to call this the rainbow property. The distributive property looks at if we have any type of factors that are repeating in our problem. This can also be used when we break our problems down to some more simple facts. So 7 times 4, we can break it apart, the 7 of 5 times 4 plus 2 times 4. And we will get out our answer. We're going to look at that problem a little bit more. Our next two properties are the identity property. Anytime we multiply by 1, we get whatever we're multiplying by. It keeps its identity. And then the zero property. Anytime we multiply by 0, we will get an answer of 0. Let's take a look at an example. Please write this example down in your notebook. I'm going to go through it step by step. Make sure as we go through this video that you are writing down each of these steps. This is going to help you on your worksheet today. So we have a problem that is 5 times 23. 5 times 23 can be very challenging when we're first starting to do multiplication, but we can make it easier by breaking the problem apart. Our very first step is to keep the 5 by itself because it's already a singular number. But 23 can be challenging. So we're going to break that apart by writing in 20 plus 3. So we're going to use that expanded form. Now we're going to move down to the next step. We still have 5 times 23, but now we're going to use the distributive property. Again, I mentioned that the distributive property is like a rainbow. Because we're multiplying 5 times this 20 plus 3, we can, let's change my color here so you can see it a little better. We can rainbow out the 5 times the 20. So that's going to be what our first one is here, 5 times 20. Our next one is 5 times 3. So we can rainbow out that 5 times 3. So now we just broke our problem apart and rewrote it a little bit simple so that we know how to multiply our 5 times a double digit. So again, we just used the distributive property. Distributive property of multiplication is a multiplication fact that can be broken into the sum of two other multiplication facts. So we now have our 20s, written in here and our 3 written in here from our last step. Our next thing to do is to be combining terms. Notice we went from having 4 different spots to now only having 2 spots. So what we did is we combined what was in the parentheses. Now, if you remember from future lessons, when we multiply anything by a 0, we can forget the 0 at first and just multiply the numbers. 5 times 2 is 10. And then we count how many zeros we forgot, which in this case was 1, and add that at the end. So we get 100. 5 times 20 is 100. We're going to also combine our second set of parentheses, and that's going to get us our last blank. 5 times 3 is 15. And the last thing we're going to do is combine our terms again because we went from 2 spots to 1. And 100 plus 15 is 115. Now we have solved 5 times 23, but we did it in a way that maybe is a little easier than trying to figure out exactly how many count by fives are 23, or counting 23 by fives. Rewatch this video if you need to. Otherwise, give your worksheet a try, and good luck.